Hello and welcome back. All right, in our last session, we were talking about reporting. It's a 3-part series. I'm going to push part 2 off a week, and instead, we're going to talk about stereotypes. I'll have a lot of requests. I've been talking about it all year long, so I thought I'd get it done before the end of the year. All right, so let's get started. So what are stereotypes? UML stereotype is a mechanism in the unified modeling language that allows you to extend the language vocabulary to create new and visually appearing domain-specific elements. It is essentially a customization tool that enables you to adapt UML elements such as classes, associations, components, and so on to fit in the needs of a particular domain and application. Stereotypes have been around since 1997 in version 1.1 of UML. And when version 2 came out, the extensibility of UML became much more powerful, where Archimate comes in and creates a stereotype. Let's go ahead and open this up and take a look at it. So you can see here for this particular element, it is using a stereotype created by TOGAF and Archimate. And when you're looking at BPMN, you can see here that it has a stereotype that's customized. You don't see stereotype in here. It is built in for a manual task, right? And with it, you can get additional properties to extend the language to fit a particular need in architecture. So how do you get to stereotypes? If you have settings tab available to you, most of you should, unless your administration model administrator doesn't allow you, but you go to settings and you come up here to UML types in the reference data panel. So let's go ahead and select this. So when we're looking at this, you can see this dialog tab here gets you to stereotypes. And these are all the stereotypes that are available to you. And there's some custom ones in here that I created that we use. All right. And then there's tag values and cardinality values under UML types. Now we're going to focus on stereotypes in this session, not tag values. But let's talk about that a little bit more. Think of stereotypes as labels or tags that add meaning and specificity to your diagrams. By using custom stereotypes, you can tailor your models to fit a unique domain requirement or requirements. This flexibility makes UML so powerful for both beginners and advanced practitioners. Now, I wanted to say that for beginners because a lot of early adopters of UML aren't familiar with stereotypes, do not know that they can customize those. And I've run across advanced modelers that do not take advantage of stereotypes and tagging to extend their vocabulary when they're defining their architecture or anything even non-architecture. So again, let's launch the UML types to get to stereotypes. So we're in the settings tab in the reference data, UML types. You get this dialog box. You need help, select the help button, launch the Sparx page for stereotype settings. And you can go down through here and look at all of the options, right? So we're going to talk about a few of these, certainly not going to dive into all of them, but let's get started on that. First, let's bring in a class element. And this could be an object element, but we'll start with a class element. I'm going to leave it class 1, the name. And what we're going to do is you can see there's nothing selected for stereotype. We're going to hit edit. Right? And it's exposing perspective, everything. And you can go into specific perspectives, but I'll let you play with that on your own. So what we're going to do is just go to the one right here, boundary, right? And it's applicable to class, right? So you can see, if I select it again, put a check mark, applies to class. And this is a class element. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and then hit OK. And you can see it takes on a shape that is coded in Sparx for a boundary. And you see this represents the a element in the presentation layer. So if we go to analysis, diagram type, we're going to go right here. You can see you have boundary available, you have control available, right? There's a control element. And then you can see the stereotype is control. And then we're going to use an entity element. It has also an embedded shape script that does a circle with a line on the bottom. So when we're talking about the model view control design pattern, this is the view, this is the model, and this is the controller, right? And then you can take any element. We're going to take one of these canned ones here. We're going to go to edit, and we're going to click this off, right? And then we're going to hit OK. And there we go. Now it has changed it to a regular or normal object element, because this shape script or this stereotype was applicable to objects. This stereotype here was applicable to classes. So it's very easy to change the stereotypes. If, for example, you brought up one, this is a controller, and you wanted to come in and say, no, I want this to be a boundary, or I want it to be something else. All right, you could certainly go through and filter the perspectives. You could filter the specific things that are available for you, and I'll let you do that on your own. We're just going to keep this simple, and we're going to change this to an entity. All right, so put a check mark in there, hit OK. Now the stereotype is entity. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And there you go. I changed this element to an entity style element. We'll go ahead and give it the same height and width. And there you go. All right, let's create our own stereotype. We're in the settings tab, UML types, bring it up. You can certainly browse through these, get some examples, but let's create a new one. And we're going to call this microservice, lowercase, and then make sure you're defining your stereotypes, because in your shop, if you're starting to create a lot of them, you do not want any blank ones, right? And you don't really want short, I didn't create this, Sparx did, definitions. You want to explain what the stereotype's about, right? And I'm just going to put this word in here for now. Now we're going to make this applicable to a class element, right? And then I'm not going to talk about groups. This is a more advanced subject matter, especially when we get into model-driven generated tooling, MDGs. We really need to make sure that we're defining our groups. And they may not even be seen in the tools, as you see with Archimate and a lot of the MDG plugins for Sparx, right? But you definitely need a base class, right? And you can assign, if you wanted to do it for an object, you'd create another one. Let's go back to UML types, hit save. Okay, now go to this class element, go to stereotype, boundary, and look for microservice, and here it is, all right? We're going to hit OK. Now we've got this. Let me do it again. I left boundary checked. There we go. Now it's off. And we're going to select microservice. Now we're going to hit OK. Did it take? It took. Boom. There we go. It's applied. And now this class element is stereotyped as a microservice. Let's create one for an object, UML types, new, it's already on it, microservice. There we go. And this time it's applicable. I'm just going to hit O to get down this long list down here to object and then hit save. There we go. Now I have microservice for object, microservice for class. Now, again, I would have a better description. You know, for instance, this would represent an instance of a microservice. That's what pretty much what an object is. So you can see now it's available. Let's make sure we're unchecking the one we want to change, changing it to a microservice, hitting OK, and now let's make it the same size. Now we have an object that is stereotyped as a microservice. Next, let's give this a shape that makes it stand out for visual representation. All right, so we want our microservice to be in the shape of a hexagon. All right. So a lot of times when you're looking at the industry, that's what happens. Right. So what we're going to do is go to UML types. We're on our class type, base type microservice. And you see down here, override appearance. And then you can bring in a picture, a meta file. And that's what most of the elements that you see in Sparx are. But you can also do a custom shape script. So we're going to choose assign, and then we're going to bring in or write a script that will create a hexagon. Now I've done that out in advance, and shape scripts are proprietary. I don't even want to say proprietary, but they're in a form that is created specifically for Sparx, all right? But I mean, when you're looking at how the element is laid out and the coding goes, you can apply this to a lot of very simple scripting languages that are out there. So in this particular case, we start with our main function for shape. We don't want a shadow, so no shadow equals true. We want to vertically and horizontally align in the center, and we want to apply the lines using this coordinates within a particular space, all right? And then we want to print wrap the name of the element within our shape. So let's go ahead and hit refresh and see how it looks. So as you're writing your script and changing things, you just hit refresh and you can see it over here, or you can start over, and we're just going to hit OK and accept this, all right? So now we have a custom shape script applicable to our stereotype. Let's go ahead and make sure we hit save, and it automatically changed it for us, all right? So it updated the element. And now our microservice is in the shape of a hexagon, all right? Now, what I recommend, we're going to go back to UML types. We're on our microservice base classes class, and we're going to hit edit. What I recommend is that when you create a shape script, that you export them to a shared folder that your developers are using. And you're going to create a lot of different shape scripts that you want to use in your company to do different things. So in this particular case, we could import an ellipse, right? Let's import that. Let's refresh. And we just have a simple ellipse with nothing in it. We could import a cloud. We wrote a cloud script, right? Let's refresh. So we've got something that looks like a cloud. And then we can hit OK. We can hit save, hit close, and there we go. Now this is in a cloud form. So you can create all sorts of shapes that meet your visual needs for your company objectives. So let's put this into real action, all right? So this is a product microservice that was here that basically deals with fetching product information. So we've coded this out. We've got a very simple code in here in C# for this demo. And this represents the entire microservice. So if we go out, here is the microservice as a class element, and the composite drills down into a view of the entire microservice, all right? So we have our data model, our business logic, and our controller. And this can be then extended and deployed in any technology, all right? So what we want to do is represent this as a microservice. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to UML types, right? We're going to look for microservice that's in here. This is in alphabetical order. And we have a microservice already formed using our shape script for this. And let me go ahead and hit cancel. Let me go ahead and hit close. No, I didn't make any changes. But what we want to do is go to properties, either through the quick access or shift entry. And there's no stereotype. What we're going to do is apply our microservice stereotype to this particular element. So here it is right here under everything. Its profile is none, so it's completely open. It's not grouped. We're going to hit OK, and there we go. Now this element is exposed as a hexagon, a polygon with 6 sides, that drills down within our architecture model into a particular implementation in our design. All right, that's going to conclude this session. I hope it was helpful. You learned something about stereotypes. We've talked a lot about them over this year and since the beginning, and how powerful you can, when you're extending stereotypes, how powerful they are for visualizing your architecture, managing your catalogs, and understanding the difference between a RESTful API or a monolithic API versus an architecture style around microservices. So as you're creating your inventory, you're able to do this. Now, in this particular case, we had alias turned on. We go to diagram, use alias if available. Otherwise, if we hit OK, they go to our standard naming convention for microservices, starting out with a lower MS and then the name. But for human readable means, as you've learned in the channel about aliases, you can apply an alias to an element. And if we go to properties over here on the right, you can see, let me just go ahead and bring this up here, right? You can see for each one of these, we have added an alias that allows us to apply human readable references to our model elements during our design sessions. Because if we go out and change this back or turn alias off, and you have a complicated API or microservice naming convention, it may be a little bit harder for others to read your architecture and understand your services. And if you don't want to see Shapescripts all together in your diagrams, you can open up the dialog box. You can go to element and over here, show Shapescript. Let's turn that off. Shapescripts is off, and we're back to normal class element views within our architecture. So different diagrams can be saying different things, communicating to different audiences, and used in different presentations. So thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. If you've got any questions, please post them down below. I know I went rather fast through this, tried to slow it down because I've been asked to in this particular subject. I could speak hours on stereotypes and tagging and their use in model-driven anything, but we'll be getting more into this subject as we get back into our MDA project, our model-driven anything project. All right. So until that next session, thanks again and happy modeling.